Good morning, boys and girls. Today I am reading you one of my absolute favorite books that my mom and I read together when I was a little girl in first grade, called A Chair for My Mother. It's by Vera B. Williams, and it is definitely a special book for a lot of families. What I want you to be thinking about today is I put up our character setting, problem, feeling about the problem, action, I switched them, solution and feeling about the solution icons, so that as you're reading, you can be thinking, what part of the story am I looking at now? And then at the end, you can go back and retell the story to yourself or somebody else using these icons to help, okay? I've also posted these icons on our Google Classroom so that you can see them and use them with any story you like. All right, so without further ado, A Chair for My Mother, which also I want you to notice has a Caldecott Honor Book Award sticker as well, because it is such a wonderfully written and drawn children's book. A Chair for My Mother. A Chair for My Mother by Vera B. Williams. To the memory of my mother, Rebecca Porringer Baker. Blue Tile Diner. My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time, I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I was finished, Josephine said, "Good work, honey," and pays me. And every time I put half my money into the jar. There's her mom in the diner. Oop, there's the jar. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all of her change from the tips out of her purse for me to count. Then we push all of the coins into the jar. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money out into piles. Some days she has lots of tips. Some days she only has a little. And then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into the jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts by the savings and they go into the jar. So their whole family works together to save. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we are going to take all of the money and go buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get one covered in velvet with roses all over it. We are going to get the best chair in the whole world. That is because our old chairs burned up. There was a big fire in our other house. All our chairs burned, so did our sofa, and so did everything else. That wasn't such a long time ago. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals. She had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked red tulips, and I was saying I liked yellow ones. And then we came to our block. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All of the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, "She's here, she's here, she's okay. Don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, although it took a while to find her. But everything else in our whole house was spoiled. I want you to think about what spoiled might mean. Yeah, ruined. What was left of the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. We went to stay with my mother's sister, Aunt Ida, and Uncle Sandy, and then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow. The floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. This picture always worried me when I was little. But the good news is the story gets better, I promise. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 chairs. The very old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us his beautiful rug. My mother's other sister, Sally, had made us red and white curtains. Mama's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans, silverware and dishes. My cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. You are all the kindest people, she said, and we thank you very much. It's lucky we're young and can still start all over. So look at how their family and friends came together to help them. Isn't that awesome? That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chairs. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. There's no good place for me to take a load off my feet, she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. So that's how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all of the coins started to go into that jar. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift down. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter. He had to boost me up so I could put it in. Wow, can you even imagine how much is in that jar? That's pretty amazing. After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full, Mama said. My mother brought home little paper wrappers for the nickels and the dimes and the quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills, and then we took the bus downtown to shop for our new chair. See, I told you it was going to get better. We shopped through 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and smaller ones, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and hard ones. Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks and the 3 bears trying out all the chairs. There's Grandma. I think she's having fun. Finally, we found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was just enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy, and they came right down in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. I bet you can guess which one is theirs. It's that one right in the middle, just like they imagined. I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it while they carried it up to the door. Look, they're going to bring it in their new apartment. We set the chair right beside the window with the red and white curtains. Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now Grandma sits in it and talks with people going by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. After supper, I sit with her and she can reach right up and turn out the light if I fall asleep in her lap. The end. Now, I want you to think about our story retelling icons, and I want you to think about the main characters, the main setting, because there's some different settings, but think about the main setting, the problem, how the characters feel about that problem, and then the actions that they do to solve their problem, the solution, and then finally, how those characters feel about the solution. Okay, boys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed this story. Definitely one of my favorites, and maybe someday it will be your favorite too. All right, happy reading.